This episode of the CyberWire is made possible in part by SpyCloud. Stolen data circulating on the criminal underground is fuel for data breaches, account takeover, ransomware attacks, and online fraud. Your biggest security risk might be a breach or malware infection outside of your control that leaks the data of your users. SpyCloud constantly recaptures and analyzes new data from the criminal underground, powering solutions that proactively protect over 2 billion employees and consumers worldwide. Learn how to make recaptured data your best defense at spycloud.com/cyberwire. That's spycloud.com/cyberwire.
SSSCIP and CISA sign a memorandum of cooperation. Are private sector offensive actors tailored security services, or are they just hired guns? Malek Ben Salem from Accenture on why crisis management is at the heart of ransomware resilience. Our own Dave Bittner sits down with Derek Manky from Fortinet to discuss the World Economic Forum partnership against cybercrime. And more credential harvesting scams are out in the wild. From the CyberWire studios at Data Tribe, I'm Trey Hester with your CyberWire summary for Thursday, July 28, 2022. In another move toward closer U.S.-Ukraine cooperation in cybersecurity, Ukraine's State Service of Special Communications and Information Protection this week signed a memorandum of cooperation with its U.S. counterpart, the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency. The memorandum doesn't initiate cooperation. Rather, it extends and expands the collaboration the two agencies have already enjoyed. CISA's announcement notes 3 areas in particular where the two agencies will work together on shared cybersecurity priorities. 1. Information exchanges and sharing of best practices on cyber incidents. 2. Critical infrastructure security technical exchanges. And 3. Cybersecurity training and joint exercises. The SSSCIP's deputy chairman described the memorandum's significance. Quote, "This memorandum of cooperation represents an enduring partnership and alignment in defending our shared values through increased real-time information sharing across agencies and critical sectors, and committed to collaboration in cultivating a resilient partnership." End quote. As The Hill observes, the focus of earlier stories on U.S.-Ukrainian cooperation in cyberspace had been on U.S. Cyber Command's unspecified activities related to Russia's war against Ukraine, acknowledged last month in some concise remarks by Cyber Command's General Nakasone during an interview with Sky News. Quote, "We've conducted a series of operations across the full spectrum, offensive, defensive, and information operations. My job is to provide a series of options to the Secretary of Defense and the President." End quote. Microsoft late yesterday released a report compiled by the Microsoft Threat Intelligence Center, the Microsoft Security Response Center, and RiskIQ that describes the activity of a threat group it tracks as KNOTWEED. KNOTWEED is regarded as responsible for Sub-Zero malware, which it provides to or deploys on behalf of its customers. The group has also exploited Windows and Adobe 0 days. The report explains why Microsoft views this threat actor as particularly egregious. In brief, it's a private company hiring out cyber attack services. Quote, "PSOAs, which Microsoft also refers to as cyber mercenaries, sell hacking tools or services through a variety of business models. 2 common models for this type of actor are access as a service and hack for hire. In access as a service, the actor sells full end-to-end hacking tools and can be used by the purchaser in operations, with the PSOA not involved in any targeting or running of the operation. In hack for hire, detailed information is provided to the purchaser to the actor, who then runs the targeted operations. Based on observed attacks and news reports, MSTIC believes that KNOTWEED may blend these 2 models. They sell the Sub-Zero malware to third parties, but have also been observed using KNOTWEED-associated infrastructure in some attacks, suggesting more direct involvement." End quote. The company behind KNOTWEED and its Sub-Zero tool is Vienna-based outfit DSIRF. DSIRF's landing page displays a simple quotation, quote, "A lie can run around the world before the truth has got its boots on," end quote. But without further elaboration. It's unclear whether that's a sideswipe at researchers who have characterized the company as a mercenary operation. The company describes itself as an Austria-based company with offices in Vienna and Liechtenstein, providing mission-tailored services in the fields of information research, forensics, as well as a data-driven intelligence to multinational corporations in technology, retail, energy, and the financial sectors. They stress that they offer fundamental research. Quote, "Our tightly integrated team provides sophisticated intelligence products which are individually tailored to each client." End quote. Exploiting 0 days would seem at the very least to be taking an expansive view of business intelligence. Microsoft explains their attribution. Quote, "Multiple news reports have linked DSIRF to the development and attempted sale of a malware toolset called Sub-Zero. MSTIC found the Sub-Zero malware being deployed through a variety of methods, including 0-day exploits in Windows and Adobe Reader in 2021 and 2022. As part of our investigation into the utility of this malware, Microsoft's communication with Sub-Zero victims revealed they have not commissioned any red teaming or penetration testing and confirmed it was an unauthorized malicious activity. Observed victims to date include law firms, banks, and strategic consultancies in countries such as Austria, the United Kingdom, and Panama. It's important to note that the identification of targets in a country doesn't necessarily mean that a DSIRF customer resides in the same country, as international targeting is common." End quote. In conjunction with the technical report of KNOTWEED, Microsoft also issued a statement, quote, "continuing to fight against private sector cyberweapons," end quote, that places KNOTWEED and DSIRF into the context of what Redmond sees as a larger problem, the emergence of PSOAs, that is, private sector offensive actors. It views companies like DSIRF, NSO Group, and Kangaroo as threats that deserve legislative attention. The Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence of the U.S. House of Representatives held hearings on the matter yesterday. Microsoft's statement to the committee urged that the U.S. work to advance global norms that would protect human rights and privacy from the wanton use of commercially produced surveillance tools that have enabled governments around the world to exceed their technical capabilities or legal authorities. Representatives of Google and the University of Toronto's Citizen Lab testified in person, and, according to Decipher, their testimony was at least as critical of the PSOAs as was Microsoft's written statement. And finally, this morning security firm Avanan released a report detailing a specific attack used by cybercriminals, mimicking a landing page in order to get your credentials. Researchers report that threat actors are sending phishing emails that appear to be from the victim's organization that say that their password is due to expire and include a link to keep or update the password. The link sends the victim to a reCAPTCHA form and then sends them to a perfectly mirrored login screen with their company email pre-populated in order to make it look more convincing. The attack is much like that of the phishing as a service subscription group Spam Eggy, but differs in that it targets Google domains. This may signify that the activity Avanan describes is from a different group. Many of the facets of this attack, including a mirrored login screen, the pre-populated email address, and the email that appears to be from the victim's organization, makes this scam pretty convincing. But when they look more closely, wary users will see that the URL doesn't match. This sort of attack has been seen before. Vigilant users should be on the lookout.
And now, a word from our sponsor, ExtraHop. With millions of dollars to earn, today's cyber attackers have grown advanced. Whether they're hiding malicious activity in encrypted channels, laying low under the guise of a trusted third party, or taking advantage of the latest CVE, they know they'll have the upper hand. In a world where attackers have the advantage, ExtraHop is on a mission to help you take it back. Learn more about how ExtraHop helps you defend your enterprise against advanced threats like supply chain compromises, ransomware, and APTs. Visit extrahop.com/cyberwire. That's extrahop.com/cyberwire. And we thank ExtraHop for sponsoring our show. Derek Manky is Chief Security Strategist and VP of Global Threat Intelligence at Fortinet. They're one of the founding members of the World Economic Forum's Center for Cybersecurity, an effort that includes experts from private cybersecurity companies like Fortinet, as well as law enforcement agencies, service and platform providers, global corporations, and nonprofit alliances. An initial result of those efforts is the Atlas Project, created to better understand the cybercriminal ecosystem, how to disrupt it, and how to mitigate the negative impact of cyber attacks. Here's Derek Manky.
What makes this valuable with the World Economic Forum and the Center for Cybersecurity is it really brings all of this together. It stitches this together, if you will, under one hood. To concentrate all of those good efforts that are happening out there, specifically on cybercrime, specifically on disruption, which, as I'm sure you're well aware from a lot of the conversations that you and I and other peers in the industry have had, is the lion's share of activity that we see out there.
Can you give us an idea of how it works from a practical point of view, the interactions you have with the World Economic Forum and the types of things that they rely on you to contribute?
Yeah, absolutely. So we were a founding partner of the Center for Cybersecurity in 2019, which is a platform with various projects underneath it, all aimed towards further enhancing cybersecurity. Specifically, where we're contributing, me and my team from FortiGuard Labs, is on the partnership against cybercrime. And so this journey really started in 2020, at the beginning of 2020. And we all, when I say we, by the way, there's over 40 members initially in the partnership against cybercrime. So it's a really good, already a good core group that we had between public and private sector. And just to give you an idea, that's, if you look at the makeup of that, it's a diverse group. We were talking about law enforcement globally. We're talking about policymakers. We're talking about intelligence organizations. But we're also talking about, of course, security experts on the private sector as well, too. And the way that we started this to contribute was in 2020, we started, of course, this was at the start of the pandemic. So we actually held a series of virtual workshops, many of them throughout 2020, basically brainstorming, getting all these, organizations together, thinking what can we do? What's our focus point? What are the recommendations if we're going to all team up together to disrupt cybercrime? And that actually led to the release of a report at the end of 2020. It's the Partnership Against Cybercrime report. There were 6 principles and recommendations that were released from that report at the end of 2020. And that led us into, of course, 2021, looking at how do we actually implement some of these recommendations? Where can we start and do a proof of concept, which is really what led us to the creation of Atlas.
I see. So it seems to me like this really could function as a conduit for different organizations who in your day-to-day lives may be competitors with each other. But this is an opportunity for you all to sort of set that aside and do something for the common good.
Absolutely. And that's why I have a lot of passion, and that's in this. And I'm quite excited about it. And it's exactly like you say, this is putting this all under one hood, making it a neutral space and an environment for all of these organizations to work together. We've proved that this can be done in the private sector with the Cyber Threat Alliance, as an example, where we have competitors working in the space to better, to share threat intelligence. But those of course are technical indicators, right? In this case, we're talking about a broader scope, looking at, again, attribution, looking at things like crypto wallets, looking at all these different disruption points, not just infrastructure, but also the who's who and mapping that ecosystem. And so, yeah, it's absolutely a great environment. It's been a great journey so far. And as I said, we're just really beginning at this point.
That's Derek Manky from Fortinet. And now, a word from our sponsor, Axonius. Too many cybersecurity assets and SaaS apps, not enough visibility? Enter Axonius. The Axonius solution correlates asset data from existing solutions to provide an always up-to-date inventory, uncover gaps, and automate action, giving IT and security teams the confidence to control complexity. Visit axonius.com/cyberwire to learn more and try it free. That's axonius.com/cyberwire. And we thank Axonius for sponsoring our show. And joining me once again is Malek Ben Salem. She is the Technology Research Director for Security at Accenture. Malek, it is always great to welcome you back to the show. Ransomware stays in the news and seems as though no signs of abating. I want to touch base with you today about crisis management in the face of ransomware and your recommendations there.
Yeah. So as you know, and as you mentioned, Dave, ransomware continues to be a problem. We know that year over year, it has doubled in size. So over 107% increase year over year in ransomware and extortion attacks. Particularly in the US, 47% of ransomware attacks are actually are for organizations based in the United States. So this is a problem. And our research has indicated that the way we're dealing with this is probably it can be improved, to say the least. So we're still dealing with ransomware as a technology or a security problem. However, I think the right approach is to really involve the business people, potentially the board, as we respond to these attacks, to understand what's the impact of the attack, what can we do, what ransomware can be paid or not, right? Those decisions. But also, how do we communicate to the stakeholders? And that's key. Today, that's not part of the crisis management preparation or a response at this point.
Is this a situation where you'd go about it the same way that an organization would plan for, say, something like a hurricane, a natural disaster?
I think that's what's happening today is that the existing recovery strategies that are attuned to traditional business continuity plans are no longer enough, right? We need business leaders to understand and prepare for ransomware's implications across the whole organization. The response should be treated as a business risk, but it has to prioritize the effective crisis management across the enterprise. I think that will be key. So in terms of, what to do or how can businesses improve their ransomware response, I think business preparedness is key. Knowing the moving parts that make the business profitable, the critical processes, their underpinnings, the downstream dependencies across every area of the organization, and what the organization's priorities are in the event of an attack, right? That's key. Defining an agile communication strategy that considers the complexity of the attack, includes not just the technical perspective, but the business perspective as well is important. And then also getting the CEO and board on board with the testing and validation of attack prevention mechanisms, right? Perhaps even, with the tabletop exercises, getting those executives included in the simulations as organizations test their defenses and introduce, the risk and the adrenaline of a real life attack scenario to them will be key as organizations prepare for these ransomware attacks.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting point. I mean, the whole notion of, trying to get people in something close to an authentic emotional state, because I think it's so easy to overlook that when we're sort of coldly calculating, planning out how we would respond. I think it's important to remember that people are going to be wound up.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And understanding who are the key decision makers, right? And perhaps are there certain thresholds for cases where maybe technology folks can make the decision, versus other thresholds where you need the business to make the decision, and who are those key decision makers is important in the preparation process.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, Malek Ben Salem, thanks so much for joining us. Thanks to all of our sponsors for making the CyberWire possible, especially our supporting sponsor, Tyke, the leading API and service management platform for managing API security. Sign up for a free trial at tyke.io/security. That's tyk.io/security.
And that's the CyberWire. For links to all of today's stories, check out our daily briefing at thecyberwire.com. The CyberWire podcast is proudly produced in Maryland out of the startup studios of Data Tribe, where they're co-building the next generation of cybersecurity teams and technology. Our amazing CyberWire team is Elliot Peltzman, Brandon Karp, Eliana White, Puru Prakash, Justin Saby, Liz Irvin, Rachel Gelfand, Tim Nodar, Joe Kerrigan, Coral Terrio, Ben Yellen, Nick Valecki, Gina Johnson, Bennett Moe, Chris Russell, John Petrick, Jennifer Iben, Rick Howard, Peter Kilpie, and I'm Trey Hester, filling in for Dave Bittner. Thanks for listening. We'll see you back here tomorrow.
And now, a word from our sponsor, Soul Cyber. Cyber insurance is a necessity these days, but with 1 in 3 applications being rejected and premiums increasing 50% or more, it may feel like dealing with the repercussions of ransomware and hackers might just be easier. Find out how Soul Cyber can help you get the right level of protection, fast-track your cyber insurance application, and even save you up to 30% on your premium with their Soul Cyber Insurance Plus program. Learn more at soulcyber.com/insurance. That's SOLCYBER.com/insurance. And we thank Soul Cyber for sponsoring our show.